Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate Chance, and I am the Faith Liaison with the Office of Community Partnerships with Montgomery County. The role of the Office of Community Partnerships is to build bridges between the community and government entities. We especially focus on underserved and emerging communities within Montgomery County. We're here today in response to the fear that our faith and community groups are experiencing in light of recent hate attacks that we're seeing in Montgomery County and across the nation, based off of race, religion, ethnicity, and other factors. From the horrific hostage situation that we witnessed in Texas to the rise in hate crimes towards the AAPI community, we want to make sure that our community groups here in Montgomery County know that they have a number of resources available to them. And that we are also very passionate about standing alongside them in the face of discrimination and acts of hate. Today, we will hear from faith and community leaders about their experiences in Montgomery County, as well as from county agencies offering programs and resources to deter hate crimes, including our security grant program. Amongst those county agencies are the Montgomery County Department of Police, Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and the Office of Human Rights. But first, we will hear from our county leadership about the importance of those programs and standing alongside our communities during these vulnerable times. First, we will hear from County Executive Marc Elrich, followed by County Council President Gabe Albornoz, Vice President Evan Glass. Then we will hear from a few council members virtually, including Sydney Katz, Nancy Navarro, and Andrew Friedson. So please join me in welcoming Marc Elrich to the stage.
And Councilmember Friedson is actually here. So thank you, Kate, for starting us off and for helping put this together. It's an important announcement today, and I appreciate everybody gathering together here. We appreciate the work that all of you do every day. I do want to take a moment to remember my friend Tufail Hamad, who probably would have been with us today if he were still alive. We all still feel his loss so very deeply, and I just wanted to mention his name and ask for just a brief moment of silence. Thank you. I also want to thank my colleagues on the County Council, Chief Jones, and all of the nonprofit and faith leaders who are joining us here today in Rockville virtually, and some of them in person. Nearly 2 weeks ago, the world witnessed yet another terror event targeted at a faith community when a British national took a rabbi and 3 other people hostage inside a Texas synagogue. This horrific event, which took place during the Sabbath, the day of prayer, rest, and peace, and has understandably shaken up our faith community and renewed concerns, as we have frequently heard over the past several years, of terror attacks on houses of worship. Hateful attacks and threats are happening simultaneously toward nonprofits who are advocating for racial justice, ethnic justice, LGBTQ rights, or reproductive rights. Although there's often major tragedies that make the national news and international news, we must not forget that lower level threats and hate occur toward our faith and minority communities, whether that comes in the form of vandalism, social media vitriol, or anonymous threats. And it's not just the actions, but the threats are important. The fear that is instilled by people who threaten other people is real. And in a world where real things happen, you just can't dismiss the threats anymore as the words of somebody who's crazy, because this stuff is getting translated into the real world, into real actions. And so while we'd like to think that this is nothing to take seriously, and we only wish we could not take it seriously, the fact is we have to take it seriously, and that's what we're doing. And our action on this, predates the incident of 2 weeks ago. This has been in the works now for a while, because we understand and have understood the need to continue to support our communities and to make sure that they feel safe and that we can help keep them safe. This fear amongst our synagogues, mosques, temples, and churches is real, and something that we are taking very seriously. Montgomery County is the only jurisdiction that we're aware of in the state and region that provides security grant opportunities from our own coffers to help houses of worship with increased security. We created this grant program upon the urging of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, and I want to acknowledge and thank Ron Halber and the JCRC for getting this kicked off. and recognizing from the very beginning that you weren't the only ones who are suffering from this. And this has been, a cross-faith, cross-organization effort. I want to acknowledge, everybody who's been part of making this happen and acknowledge the participants, the people who applied from these grants. The maximum grant, by the way, is I think $16,000. And I just want you to know that as we put together our next budget, it will be in the budget as well. There's no point in doing this one time for this period and then saying, okay, it's done. This is going to be with us as long as this problem is with us. One key difference in our program as compared to state and federal grants is we're providing more flexibility over the use of these funds to allow them to be used for operating costs rather than just capital investments in security. Freedom of assembly is a sacred constitutional right, and it should be free from the fear of violence, whether it's through the MCPD, our community engagement cluster, or our regional offices. We are here to support the safety of all our houses of worship and nonprofit organizations. I want to congratulate all our nonprofits who received these grants and hope that these funds will help keep your organizations and communities safer and help you feel safer. It's important that people feel that going to a house of worship or going to a nonprofit doesn't mean you're putting your life at risk. I want you to leave with a quote from a very famous ordained minister we all know more commonly as Mr. Rogers. Some days, doing the best we can may still fall short of what we would like to do and be able to do, but life isn't perfect on any front. And doing what we can with what we have is the most we should expect of ourselves or anyone else. Montgomery County is going to continue to do everything we can to help you thrive and to help you feel safe. And I'll turn this back over to Gabe, or should I go to the next person? Bear with me a second. Next, Gabe. Virtually. There you are.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. County Executive, for those very powerful and thoughtful words, and especially for convening us this afternoon in such a timely fashion. The incidents that happened in Texas, unfortunately, are not new, and we have seen a rash, especially over the last 5 years, of increases in hate crime, emboldened by national rhetoric that is inflaming hate in ways that I've never seen, at least in my generation. It is so important for us to be able to come together as a community to reaffirm the values that we hold so dear here in Montgomery County that connect all of us in such real and authentic ways, and especially acknowledge the despair and the fear that exists among too many of us. I really appreciate you acknowledging Mr. Tufail Ahmad and the moment of silence, because there is no better example of the type of bridge builder that we need here in our community now more than ever. And his legacy is what keeps us all so strong and why we are here this afternoon. I especially want to acknowledge my friends in our Jewish community who have been through so much for too long. We stand with you. We stand alongside you. We are so proud that you have chosen our community as your home. And we will do everything humanly possible to ensure that you and all of our communities of faith feel safe and feel that this continues to be the wonderful and important place that it is. While many of my colleagues are joining us here virtually and in person, I know I speak on behalf of all of them in acknowledging the incredible work that's been done by Montgomery County Police, our nonprofit organizations, our faith leaders, everyone who has come together in this once again important time of need. And thank you for your leadership and sacrifice. I'll end with this thought. I am a person of faith myself, and the time that my family and I spend together on church on Sundays is sacred. It provides us peace. It provides us direction. It provides us fellowship, and is probably the most important component of our family as a whole. And I know that same feeling is shared by many. We, as a government leaders, have to ensure the safety and security of all of our residents. It's the most basic thing and the most important thing that we have to do as a government. And so it's critically important for us to rise to this and what will hopefully not be future occasions, but we'd be naive to think there won't be, in ensuring that there is additional safety and security of all of our community members, but that we also proactively do preventative measures and holistically work together to address people that are in need and that are in crisis. So thank you again for your leadership, Mr. County Executive, in bringing us together today. We stand with you as well and our entire community of faith. And I especially do want to also thank the JCRC, Mr. Halper, and all of the leadership of our Jewish community for convening us together again today. With that, I turn it back to you.
County Council Vice President Evan Glass. Evan Glass will be followed virtually by Sydney Katz and then Nancy Navarro. And following Nancy Navarro, we're going to hear from Councilmember Andrew Friedson in person. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. While we're here to make this announcement, it's also important to recognize what today is. And today also happens to be Holocaust Remembrance Day, the 77th anniversary of when prisoners at the Auschwitz concentration camp were liberated from the Nazi-controlled Soviet forces. And as we remember that as our history, it is extremely important that today's conversation is put into perspective. And we are all here, all members of the faith community, because love and compassion are universal tenets of all of our major world religions. And in particular, it is love and compassion for strangers and foreigners that we take to heart here in Montgomery County, where 1/3 of our residents are foreign born. And as a member of the Jewish faith, I know that the Torah commands us at least 36 times to treat strangers justly. In Leviticus, it says, "The stranger who resides with you shall be you as one of your citizens. You shall love them as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." And it is that same tenet that instructed members of the congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville, Texas, to welcome a stranger into their temple, a stranger who ultimately tried to do them harm. And so here we are today talking about how we don't have to make these choices. We don't have to choose between a compassionate policy of helping strangers and choosing between worshiping as we choose. We can do both. We will do both. And these funds will allow all houses of worship to do more so that we can continue feeling safe here in Montgomery County and practicing to worship as we choose. Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It is truly my pleasure to join the county executive as well as all my other colleagues here today to support the nonprofit security grants, which were being made available to our faith-based institutions. It's also my pleasure to join the religious communities who are here today, virtually and in the room, and all the others as well. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees freedom of religion, which of course is a hallmark of our country, a hallmark that we are all so very proud. And the fact that anyone would attempt to harm anyone at a time of prayer and reflection is something that no one should ever tolerate. And we should do everything we can to prevent it. These funds are in addition to the $700,000 that are already allocated by the council last year. And with the rise of discrimination that we are seeing here and literally throughout the world, we are once again demonstrating, we need to once again demonstrate and show that we fully support all efforts to protect our residents at all times and in all places. So I thank you, Ron Helper of the JCRC, the county executive, for prompting this initiative and for everyone standing together, shoulder to shoulder, to show our support. Thank you very much. And with that, I believe I'm turning it over to Councilmember Navarro.
We have a quick change in schedule, actually.
Okay, well, I'm not then.
So we're actually first going to hear from Councilmember Andrew Friedson, who is here in person today. So we're going to welcome him to the stage.
Well, thank you for that, and apologize to Councilmember Navarro, who's a big supporter of this program as well, who will be closing us out as elected leaders. But I am just so deeply regretful for why we're here, but appreciate the fact that we are here to announce this important program. We unfortunately have seen in our own community, as well as the devastating and abhorrent acts in Texas, for how important this program is, why it's so important for Montgomery County to step up uniquely among local jurisdictions to make sure that we are sending a message, not just with our words, but with our funds, not just with our commitments, but actually with our actions to make sure that every single person in our community can worship free from fear, can exercise their constitutional rights to be who they are, to believe what they do without having to worry about their safety or the safety of their family. I'm really pleased that 2 years ago, then Council President Katz, now Council President Albornoz, and I organized a town hall meeting where we were joined by Chief Jones, where we were joined by members of the executive branch and the Office of Emergency Management to talk about these issues, which became the impetus working with JCRC and so many other local leaders like our dear friend, the late Tafel Ahmad, who is just such an important part of our community and continues to have his legacy known not just today in this event, but in so many things that we do at the county. We were able to push this forward. And we had some difficult conversations at the county council and a tough budget cycle to determine what we could continue to do. But this was an amount of funding that we wanted to secure and wanted to make sure that we could continue. And working closely with the county executive, working closely with Chief Administrative Officer Rich Madalino and Emergency Management Director Earl Stoddard, we were able to make sure that this happened. And I think that unfortunately, we have seen all too often now why it was so important that we did. And I really appreciate and wanted to acknowledge the county executive's commitment today that this will continue in the budget, because unfortunately we know that anti-Semitism isn't going away. We know that hatred, unfortunately, in our community and our country isn't going away. And we need to make sure that we are stepping up with love and with unity, with the same amount of energy and effort and commitment as they are, so that we can defeat it, because we know that that is the only way that we are going to drive out hate with love, with community, and with unity. And that's what these grants are all about. Sanctuaries should be places of peace. They should be places of safety and security. They should never be places where anybody in any community, particularly in ours, is fearful for their own health and welfare. And these grants, while they won't solve every problem, they're a significant step in a critical direction. And I really appreciate the fact that we're here today to do that. So now it is my privilege to turn it over to Councilmember Navarro to close us out here virtually. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson, for those remarks. And I want to acknowledge and thank County Executive Marc Elrich and my colleagues, Council President Albornoz, Council Vice President Glass, and Councilmember Katz, as well as the entire council. 31 years ago, my husband and I, both immigrants, chose Montgomery County as our home to raise our children, precisely because Montgomery County lives its values out loud. And unfortunately, throughout my service in Montgomery County, there have been way too many events like these, where we have had to come together to provide support, comfort, funding, because Montgomery County is not immune from what now seems to be a crescendo of hate and of violence. And so when I think of the role that our houses of worship play, especially right now during this prolonged pandemic, it is that one opportunity for our residents to find that comfort, that peace, that sense of belonging. And no more than ever, we need to hold hands, stand together, and make sure that people don't have to, in addition to all the stressors that everybody's facing, also have to then deal with this notion of not being safe. So I applaud everyone who came together. Our community partners have always been extraordinary. And this is, again, a Montgomery County family stepping up to make sure that we take care of each other and that we do continue to live our values out loud. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Navarro. We really appreciate your words, and we appreciate the words of all of our elected officials here today and their dedication to making Montgomery County a welcoming and safe place for us all. Next, we are going to hear from our faith and community-based leaders and on their experiences within Montgomery County. First, we're going to hear from Ron Halbert, the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. He will be followed by Saba Rashid, who is the president of Montgomery County Muslim Foundation. She will be joining us virtually. And then following Saba, we will hear from Mr. Sultan Chowdhury, who is also working with Montgomery County Muslim Foundation. He's also very involved with the Islamic Community Center of Potomac and the Potomac area interfaith communities. Following our representation from Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, we're going to hear from Mr. Rajan Singh, who is the founding member of Guru Gobind Singh Foundation. He's also the chairman for the Sikh Council on Religion and Education and the president of EcoSikh and co-founder of We Are Sikhs. Last, we will hear from Dr. Chi-Sang Lee, who is the executive director of the Chinese Culture and Community Service Center. So please join me in welcoming Ron Halper to the stage. And also, Ron, feel free to introduce the next guest following you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Halber, and it's my privilege to serve as the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. The destructive political polarization in America and breakdown of civil discourse, combined with the dramatic rise of anti-Semitism, racism, and all forms of bigotry, along with social media, unfettered access to firearms, and a lack of mental health services, has created the perfect toxic brew for violence in America. And unless we as a nation look inward and begin a course correction, more violence is likely. Our presence here today is especially appropriate, tragic, but unfortunately necessary, following the horrific hostage-taking terrorist event in Congregation Beth El in Colleyville, Texas. We in Montgomery County are determined that we will not join the ranks of Colleyville, Pittsburgh, Poway, and Muncie, locations around the United States that are now synonymous with violence directed against the Jewish people. While Jews constitute approximately 2% of America's population, about 60% of religious-based hate crimes target Jewish institutions and the Jewish people. Recent years have also witnessed an extraordinary and unacceptable increase in hate crimes targeting Asian Americans, Muslim Americans, African Americans, and other groups in their institutions. This cannot be tolerated, and we must, as a collective society, fight back. I want to express my gratitude to County Executive Marc Elrich for his visionary leadership, and to the County Council for their extraordinary support in creating this local, innovative, flexible $700,000 security grant program focused on providing operating dollars to houses of worship and other nonprofit institutions. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first local government grant program of its kind in our nation, not just in Maryland and not just in our region, and it must be replicated throughout our country. We are extraordinarily grateful for the millions of dollars provided by the federal government and the state of Maryland, mostly geared towards capital needs that enables us to purchase equipment and all faith groups to purchase equipment to protect our houses of worship and other institutions. But a gap remained, the lack of ongoing operating dollars to hire off-duty police to guard our communities and our county's diverse houses of worship, schools, and other facilities during times of high usage. Our county's leadership has acted resolutely to close this gap by creating this program that provides desperately needed and recurring operating dollars to hire off-duty police to protect our institutions, which we know is the single greatest deterrent to individuals seeking to do violence. It is sad, but unfortunately necessary that county funds need to be dedicated to this purpose. The single most important responsibility of government is to provide for the welfare and welfare of its residents. It confronts the obvious trend in America today to prevent self-radicalized, hateful individuals who feel compelled to act violently against diverse groups in our society, which is a direct attack on our national values. We in the Jewish community will not live in fear, nor will we cower. We will not permit this unprecedented wave of violence to deter us from observing our faith publicly and with pride. And we will stand together with our fellow Americans of all backgrounds in support and unity, as we have always done, should they find themselves victims of senseless hatred. Our county has taken a Herculean step forward to protect its citizens, and we are extremely grateful. And now I'd like to welcome up Rajan Singh, who's the founding member of the Guru Rajan Singh Foundation and the chairman of the Singh Council on Religion and Education.
We're actually going to hear from Sabah Rashid first.
Oh, okay.
Right there,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabah Rashid. I'm president of Montgomery County Muslim Foundation. First of all, I would like to thank County Executive Marc Elrich for the moment of silence and recognizing Tufail Ahmed as a bridge builder. He was indeed a bridge builder, and we have suffered a big loss by him not here with us. But I commit, and we all commit, and to continue the legacy of Mr. Tufail Ahmed, to work with everyone and to have a hate-free and a hunger-free society. That was his vision, and we propose and we commit to carry on his legacy. The Montgomery County Muslim Foundation and the entire Muslim community strongly condemns the heinous act of terrorism on the congregation Beth Israel, a sacred place of worship. Large number of our community members have approached us and expressed their extreme abhorrence to this act of violence. It is indeed an unforgivable act of evil on innocent members of the congregation who were praying at that time. We stand in solidarity with our Jewish brethren. The Muslim community sends their prayers to all members of the congregation and the entire Jewish community who have been subjected to this cruel, unjust, unacceptable act of violence. I want to thank the county executive to looking into this matter and for the security grant that we've been granted also in all houses of worship. It is indeed a unique grant, and everyone and every county should follow it. Thank you, County Executive Marc Elrich. Thank you so much for County Council members, everyone, for your kind words about Tufail Ahmed and the security grant. It does give us the protection to go on and to serve the community, and we do want to feel safe in Montgomery County. Thank you, Kate, for organizing this thing and giving us the opportunity to speak. I would like to request Mr. Sultan Chaudhry to say a few words. He's our board member and also our interfaith liaison.
Peace and greetings. I'm Sultan Chaudhry. I'm associated with the MCMF and Islamic Community Center of Potomac on River Road, as well as the Potomac area interfaith communities, which consist of 12 places of worship of all denominations. And I bring the messages of peace and solidarity to live together in harmony and start the dialogue of destroying hate and hateful speeches. I've been living in Montgomery County for over 30 years and raised 3 sons who went through schools and now in their professions. We've been happy and wonderful. And thank you, Mr. County Executive, the Council President, and the councilman for doing the $700,000 community service grants to assist in protecting houses of worship and nonprofit organizations. Such grant is unique in the country. Safety is essential to peaceful living that Montgomery County represents. And this help could not come at a better time. We have seen the acts of shooting in Montgomery County, the hostage taking in Texas, the hate acts in Silver Spring, Rockville, Pittsburgh, desecration and burning of place of worship, and so on. ICCP and MCCF have been involved in supporting relief and other efforts in all of these programs, all of these events. As faith communities, nonprofit organizations, and citizens of the country, we denounce all acts of hate and hateful expressions. We stand together in our resolve to support each other in times of anxiety. And I think the haters should know that the people of goodwill are together and they are in very small minority. So let's re-emphasize it by outreaching in such programs. And I also want to thank this group as well as others for the expressive love for our leader, MCMF leader, Tufail Ahmed. And thanks to Kate Chance and our law enforcement people that help us every week on Friday congregation and all emergency services people. May God bless our community. Assalamu alaikum. And I now welcome Mr. Rajan Singh.
Good afternoon. I'm Rajan Singh. I represent the Guru Gobind Singh Foundation Sikh Center on Travella Road, Rockville. And we are so pleased with the leadership of our dear friend, Marc, the county executive, and all the council members. And this shows the responsible leadership of Montgomery County, that they are caring for the well-being, safety, and security of all citizens, and particularly the faith communities. And I was looking at the statistics by FBI since 2019, and particularly in 2020 and 2021, the most of the attacks have been on the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and the Sikh community is on the third number. There's a jump of 82% of hate crimes against and violence acts against the Sikhs, after 683 against the Jewish community and 110 Muslim community. So we are right there, and it is all of this is happening is directly proportional to the hateful rhetoric that we have been seeing in this country from last so many years. And I must say that our turban stands for equality. It stands for justice. It stands for love and harmony. And we are not going to stop wearing these symbols of our making a statement that we are here and we are enriching this community. And just as the hate crimes are increasing, our work of serving our neighbors and those who are suffering and those who are in need is also directly proportional to our service in the Montgomery County and throughout the nation. Throughout the COVID times, the Sikh community have been serving food in many, many communities, and we have, with God's grace, we have served over 325,000 meals since March 2020 at the Travella Road Sikh congregation, and we will continue to do so. But this kind of gesture, it really helps all the volunteers, the families, and particularly children. There is the bullying against the Sikh children because of the turban and because of the outer symbols is close to 67%. And this is the highest against any community. And so that is also a major factor that our congregation needs the support system so we can provide a wonderful and safe environment for our children. And not just for our children, I feel that this ought to be available to all communities, and particularly all those listed who are facing the hate and violence. And we stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters. We have Beth Ami, a congregation on Travella Road. We have wonderful relationship with them, and we will continue to stand together shoulder to shoulder with our Muslim community or any faith community who's facing this hate and violence. And we are so grateful for this visionary leadership of the Montgomery County and the entire political leadership. We are so grateful, and we will continue to pray for their well-being so they continue to make the right decision so that this county becomes a prime example how America can be a beautiful country. Thank you. And may I ask Mr. Chi Sang Lee from the Executive Director of the Chinese Culture and Community Service Center.
Thank you to give us this opportunity to be here. I'm Qishang Li, the Executive Director of Chinese Culture and Community Service Center, CCACC. We have been in Montgomery County for 40 years now, and we provide adult daycare, home care, gallery, and health clinic. And recently, we also add childcare. So the most obvious symbol of us is we have our 30+ buses running all over the county. And in the past few years, we had many incidents of vandalism against the buses. They took the muffler, from the buses. The most serious one is one time 20 mufflers were taken from our buses because it contains some precious metal. And this is the specific instance, and also there are some other specific instances of hate crime. And I'm so grateful to county executive and county council members to give us this grant so that we can start doing security assessment, hate crime prevention training, security drills such as the Yellow Whistle Project, and promote the awareness of hate crime. As for the impact of the residents, our daily activity involved more than 2,000 residents, and also our daycare and after-school care, the family involved, and including the summer camp, are over 2,000 families. So it greatly helped us in protecting the safety of the resident of Montgomery County. And I want to thank the county executive and county council member for giving us this grant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chisong Lee, for your words, and to all of our faith and community leaders for sharing your experiences with us. So next, we want to hear from Montgomery County departments that are able to provide different resources to communities in need. First, we will hear from the Montgomery County Department of Police. We're going to hear from Chief Marcus Jones and also Carmen Faciolo, Sharif Almi-Gaber, and Captain Stacy Flynn will be joining him as well on the stage. Next is the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. James Mcclelland, the Emergency Management Specialist, will be joining us. And then last, we're going to hear from the Director of the Office for Human Rights, Jim Stowe. Thank you.
So good afternoon. I want to again thank the county executive, Marc Elrich, and the council president Albornoz, as well as the county council for their support for this very important program that we believe that is again, when you have a grant funded program that will provide safety for all of our religious institutions. I think it shows the commitment to safety and how the county does care. And again, with me today, are my staff who are responsible for dealing with really the engagement, leading the engagement of our police department with our religious institutions. And again, I want to thank the religious leaders for their commitment of being here and providing their partnerships with our police department in order to work towards having a safe Montgomery County. With me today is Assistant Chief Carmen Faciolo, who oversees the Community Resources Bureau. With me is Captain Stacy Flynn. She is the Director of the Community Engagement Division, and Officer Sharif Almi-Gaber, who has provided a lot of engagement with our communities of religious worship. The recent events that have demonstrate our partnership and commitment to address these safety threats and crime concerns for our houses of worship. Just recently, when we had those incidents that occurred in Texas, I was on the phone with Director Rajan Singh, where we were talking specifically about what were we going to do here in Montgomery County in order to work towards creating a safe environment for the synagogues here. It's just an example. We have done it with other institutions along the way. We will continue to make that commitment. We are having a high record of bias incidents that are occurring in our county. We are monitoring and have always monitored these events. Our annual report for last year will be out shortly, and it will demonstrate that we are having a high record of numbers, which is very disturbing. And many of these are occurring at our houses of worship, to include the hate crimes as well. Again, we remain committed to addressing these open lines of communication with our religious leaders to address their concerns and provide the training to their congregations for that safe environment. And again, the funding for these security enhancements is an important step, as it was noted about having even off-duty police officers working or being of presence at these locations during particularly high seasons and when these congregations believe that it's important. I believe it is a very important step towards managing safety in our community. And we, as the Montgomery County Police, look forward to our continued partnership as we move forward for a safer Montgomery County. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Mcclelland. I work in the Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. And as has been mentioned earlier, hate crimes against faith organizations, houses of worship, are nothing new. I think they've been going on since people first started to gather to worship together, but they are increasing at an alarming and disturbing rate. And Montgomery County has been working to try to alleviate this for some time. For the past several years, in a partnership with the Office of Community Partnerships, thank you, and the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Montgomery County Police, and Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. We've held a number of presentations for faith leaders on how to make their houses of worship safer. We talk about active shooter response. We talk about identifying and properly handling or not handling suspicious packages. And we talk about how to make the facility more secure without making it a fortress. And one of the things that comes up repeatedly is the need for proper training for staff and for congregants, and also development of emergency plans. And so I'm thrilled to see these grant dollars available to help houses of worship develop these procedures, these plans, to have an increased security presence. And I personally, for myself and on behalf of OEMHS, I want to thank Mr. Elrich and the County Council for approving and making these funds available. I think they'll go a long way to make Montgomery County a safer place for people to worship. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to introduce Jim Stowe from the Office of Human Rights.
Good afternoon. I too want to, excuse me, I too want to make sure that we thank all those who've gathered here today and those who are responsible for this program, to County Executive Marc Elrich and to our County Council President, Gabe Albornoz, County Council Vice President, Mr. Glass, and all council members who are here today and those who've spoken by way of remote connectivity. To our religious leaders, Ron Halbert, thank you so much for keeping a steady hand on these kinds of issues and concerns and reminding all of us about what we can do better in facilitating and sharing with our community. In the Office of Human Rights, we're unfortunately sometimes also hear about incidents happening to many of our places of worship across Montgomery County. And as been stated thus far, unfortunately, we do have incidents that are still occurring across Montgomery County. And this was not acceptable then, is not acceptable today. But there are some things that we want to make sure that all of our community knows about what you can do and some of the resources that are available to you. One of the things that we want to make sure people understand is that we need to make sure that we're speaking up about these incidents when they occur. This may have happened to your synagogue, your place of worship, your temple, your church, but in effect, it has happened to the entire community when it's happened to you. And so we're asking you to speak up about that and share it with. We got to expose this for what it is and call it out and denounce it at every turn. We want to be able to give support to and comfort to victims. And the only way we'll know that is that you share with us what is going on. The other issue that was just raised by my colleagues with emergency management is the fact that there's enough information out there. So we're asking that you have meetings with, and one of the things we learned, right, about Beth Israel in Texas was they had just had a session, a training session with members of their community, their congregation. And so they were prepared to deal with what happened as it turns out. And we're so glad they were. And so for our places of worship, it's fundamental that you have these conversations with your congregates well before any of these kind of incidents ever were to happen. It's critically important everybody knows what their function is, what their role may be in preventing such activities. Involve also your community around you, not just your members of your congregation, but bring in community members who will share your geographical space as well. It's important that, again, we all share this particular issue and its concern. And lastly, this is that our police are fundamental to this process. Invite the district officers into those meetings that you have, and they can share again the information they may have and the resources they may have at hand as well. So they become part of your team in preventing these issues from occurring in your community and around your places of worship. And of course, we're very, very fortunate in Montgomery County that our elected officials are already on board and they're working collectively together to ensure we got then the support we need that's so critically important to, again, fight these incidents of crime that happen in our communities. First and foremost, folks, if they occur in your community, at your synagogue, place of worship, call the police. First and foremost, report the police. And secondly, do not tamper with anything that you've seen, because again, that's evidence. So leave it like it is. And allow them police to come in and do their jobs. And lastly, contact our office, the Office of Human Rights, because we have available to you through, again, Montgomery counties, need to make sure that you know that you're not standing by yourself. There's solidarity in what we do. We have what we call the Partnership Fund. This fund was established that if you are a victim of hate crimes in Montgomery County, there are some resources that will come to your aid to, again, signal this solidarity of purpose and solidarity, again, of resolve, that hate crimes are not going to live well in Montgomery County. And so for incidents that may involve you with involving, for instance, vandalism that may occur at your place of worship, we have up to $2,000 for each incident that's available to you upon reporting that incident and identifying as a hate crime, and up to $4,000 in the event there may be personal injury that might occur. And so those are resources that the county has said are available to you when these various things occur. So we're asking all of you to be mindful of these things that we can do. Again, the things you must do in terms of reporting what took place. And at the end, if there is a way that we can come back and give some sort of reimbursement for your activities that would have occurred in your particular communities, there is the partnership fund that you can apply for. And so I would commend those things to you. People hate each other because people fear each other. And people fear each other because people don't know each other. And people don't know each other because we're so often separated from each other. And so we need to try harder and harder and harder to make sure that we know one another as neighbors in this great community of ours. Because all of us are in this together. We are indeed our brothers and sister keepers. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our county agencies, and thank you to Mr. Stowe for that really powerful conclusion to our press conference today and reminding us all that we are all in this together, and an attack against one community is truly an attack against all communities. We want to take this time to open to the press to see if there are any questions. Please do your best to address questions to one person just so that we can have people come up individually. Is there anything on the tech side so far? No. Nope. All right, so we're going to conclude. Thank you all so much for being here today. Please be sure to share these resources with communities and to help stand together with communities that are suffering from different attacks and the feelings of, being victimized based off of race, religion, ethnicity, and so forth. Thank you. Thank you.